All right, 48-minute drive. Let's go. What? Dodge Charger right there, look at that. I know it's kind of dusty in here and you probably can't hear me. It's ready for clear coat now. I'm standing here working on this Plymouth and I was thinking, man, they have people brainwashed into thinking that you need like a beautiful restored car, you need to strip it apart, sandblast it, put brand new sheet metal in it. And this just, it couldn't be further from the truth. Man, I paid $500 for this car. It's not a popular car. A 73, 74 Plymouth Roadrunner Satellite is the exact opposite of a popular car. They don't even make quarter panels for these cars. You can go out and find you old 75 Dodge, an 80-something Chevy truck, 80s. You can find a freaking Caprice Classic if you wanted to for $200, $300, $400, $500, $1,000 and just get it running, get it driving, slap it together, spray paint it, and you're good to go. You don't need to do all this crazy stuff. I'm probably gonna have, I know for a fact, I'm gonna be able to put this car on the road for around $1,000 and I have a really cool car. Yeah, it's not a Cuda. Yeah, it's not a real Roadrunner. Yeah, it's not a Barracuda. Yeah, it's not a Camaro. It's not a Dodge Charger, but it's a cool car. I like it. So who gives a fuck what anybody thinks? Just go work on a car, get a car, and put it back on the road and have fun with it. And do it on your budget. This is all stuff that came with the car. We have our headlight buckets. We have our mirror. I traded a guy some parts for 2 headlight bezels. Let's pull this junk out of here. So this trunk is actually like ridiculously solid. And there's absolutely no rust through. Isn't that beautiful? Factory just left that big run like that. So here's all the junk I'm working with. I actually traded the wheels off of that Ram Charger for this fender, grill. I have a bumper and then the headlight bezels. This came with the car. Since the car was smashed in the front driver's side, this is kind of dented up. So we're gonna have to work that. And then it has a couple cracks, small. Our lower valence is completely mangled up, and these things, if you can even find them, they're like crazy expensive. Of course, it got hit on the driver's side, so this is all crunched in. It's not gonna be perfect at all. I mean, not even close to being perfect, but we'll get it there. And I got bags of bolts. Last guy, looks like the last guy labeled most of the stuff. I'm missing a couple pieces. I'm missing the header bracket. Also, I need the trim that goes around the front windshield, the back windshield. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop here. I'm gonna make a little trip in the 55 Plymouth to Brown Auto Salvage in Sunset, Texas. All right, 48-minute drive. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's go. I'm actually going to get this trim right here. Give me a pretty good deal on it. And then that bracket piece.
Yeah, it could be a 904 in there even, I don't know. But it runs. I mean, it runs.
So before I head home, do a little bit of cruising through the junkyard. So this junkyard here is called Brown Auto Salvage. It's a junkyard in Sunset, Texas. They got some cool stuff. I mean, I think they have like 3,000 cars. Here's the parts we got from Brown Auto. Got a full headlight bucket assembly. Old one was all crimpled up. Yeah, probably could have straightened it out, made it work, but missing the buckets. I needed the buckets anyways. Plus this one came with 2 headlights, so maybe good. The bracket for the header panel. All right, I'm gonna keep jamming, packing all this stuff on there, and all right, so I got the headlight buckets in, got this little dealio piece in there on both sides. This one was all crunched up. I bent it out as best as I could. There's some areas I need to weld. Fenders on there. We got the header panel on there. It's really beat up. Somebody did some body work, Bondo work to it. We got our hood. Latch is good. So everything latches. It's really off. I got the body lines as best as I could get them, but for some reason, like this area's popped up, that area is stuck down. So I'm gonna have to do some messing, adjusting on the hood. And then this fender, for whatever reason, I can only get it, you know, that's as good as I could get it. And I know this door is gonna need adjusting. You can see how big this gap is. And I can stick my whole finger in the gap. But it's higher on that end, so I think the guy told me that he put the doors on there, so I'm just gonna have to mess with the doors, mess with the hood, and get everything kind of lined up, but it's looking pretty good. Next, I'm just gonna start hitting it with a hammer and twisting it with some pliers, get it as perfect as I can get it, one thing at a time. All right, there you go. This is that piece that was all mangled and twisted up. So I got that all straightened out. This is the bottom side. You're really not gonna be able to see any of this. Main stuff that matters is all of this right here. So I got all this pretty straight. Like I said before, but I could always sand that down, put a skim coat of filler on there, and it would look just fine. I mean, that's a passable piece, especially with what I was working with. And it was all twisted up. I'm gonna have to do some welding on this middle section. This piece broke off. This piece right here needs to be welded from banging it. It's looking pretty clean. No real dents, or it's pretty straight now. Obviously it's a little ripply. This side is a tiny bit off, but looks a lot better than it did. Bodywork, let's talk about it. So I've learned my lesson in the past. When you do body work, what I used to do was I would go, oh, I'm gonna do the metal work, then I'm gonna do the Bondo work, then I'm gonna, you know, do the whole car. You should do the car in sections. That's the best way to do it. It's way easier to just do it by panel. First, what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna put trim on this car. I'm gonna weld in all these holes, smooth it out, sand down all my little dings that I marked, Bondo it, block sand it, make that all perfect straight, then we'll prime it. Then we'll move over to I ground down each one of the holes, and then I welded, tack it, and you'll see it go red, flash off. Tack it, it'll go red, flash off. You want to keep welding. You're either going to blow a hole through the metal or you're going to warp the rest of the metal. Then you have way more problems than just a couple little holes. I have a flat disc. I'm going to grind all this down smooth, and then we can start looking at fixing all these little dings. That's what she looks like. You're basically gonna make a dent. So obviously you're gonna have to put some body filler over there. Sometimes if you're like a really good like professional metal guy, you can actually do it to where you just prime it and then block it, but I'm obviously not that guy. Next thing I wanna do, each one of these dents that I circled, and like this area, take my flapper and grind all that out to bare metal, and I can start doing Bondo work. Nothing major, it's just a lot of little dings, but it'll be real easy to work out. So I'm gonna go ahead and start slathering on some filler. I took a hammer too and I tapped everything out a little bit, so it's not too bad. I mean, it's gonna we're hard enough to where it's not, it's kind of still gooey, but not, it's, you know, hard enough to tap on. Take your cheese grater or Bondo grater, and we'll just kind of rough it in like a cross pattern. Pretty much all I need is these three tools. We got a flat inline block sander with some 80 grit on there. We can work all that out. Got a little small one sponge with some 46 grit, some 80 grit wrapped around it. We can get on these corner parts. And then we got a dual action. It spins this way and it also spins this way. Sander, hook and loop 80 grit pads. Mainly gonna use this to rough everything in. Basically, I'll grab the DA sander, go in an X pattern, and you want to every once in a while check, feel it, because there was a dent right here. You rub your hand across it, you should be able to feel if it feels like it's high or it's too low. If it's too low, add more filler, just block it again. But just for right now, we're pretty much just trying to rough the bodywork in so we can get the bodywork, you know, somewhat straight, and then we'll lay a coat of high build primer on there. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit all this down with the DA and the block, and then we can move our way on over to the door. All right, I'm gonna get cutting. This was kind of crimpled in a little bit, but I beat it out and this whole metal was actually tweaked in. So I went ahead and brought it to bare metal and blended the Bondo out. This is probably gonna take 2 or 3 coats. This area was so low, I'm gonna have to blend it, put some more Bondo, and then sand it back down. But it really isn't that bad, just this little area, but you gotta feather it all out. And then I got this welded. This is welded up. Work that Bondo out, work this out, and then maybe we'll be done. You start doing it and you find one thing, and then it turns into another thing and another thing, then you find some rust and you find some more dents. So we're getting there though. You just gotta keep on keeping on. You also need to figure out how far you want to go. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm gonna get all the major dings out. Any kind of waviness I'll leave. You're really not gonna be able to tell. But if I was to pick, This is all done. It's not perfect, but it's gonna be good enough for our standards. Let's go ahead and move on to the door. I'm gonna put some cardboard over this window, roll it up. You don't wanna leave the window down because sparks are gonna fly inside of here, and it's gonna leave little, especially because I'm using MIG flux core, it's gonna leave little particles all over the window. The door right here is dented in. I need to pull that out. You can see all the little dings. I think we could probably get this whole side of the car done in one day. This is gonna be the issue on this side. The other side, oh my gosh, that's another story. It's like brand new. I sent my wife to Hobo Freight, got me some of this filler primer. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna apply it to all of the areas where we have our little Bondo patches. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna fill in any of the areas that have some scratches, pinholes. Maybe I didn't feather it well enough. It's gonna lay on there really thick, and it's gonna help whenever we get to the point where we're gonna prime the whole entire car. We'll have that extra thick layer around our Bondo areas when we block sand it. I noticed somebody started to weld up these little holes, the trim holes. Looking around, made my way up here, and I was like, what is that? Is that some silicone? I peeled the silicone off and stuck my screwdriver in there, and then I stuck it in right here. Then I stuck it in over here, and it kept going and going and going, and I'm afraid to go any further, but and there's absolutely no rust through. Yeah, that's terrible. I don't know why somebody would silicone that. And then they made it way worse by siliconing it, and it held all that water in there. I'm gonna take the fender that came off of it and cut out the metal and weld it in. I'll have to come up with a game plan, so just sit tight for a second. Took my wire wheel, ground it all out, and I cut this section of metal out, and I took some cardboard, stuck the cardboard on there, hit it with a hammer, and I got a print. So I took this gutter, bent it out of the way with some pliers. I'll take another piece, as long as the water can flow off and it doesn't sit in this rail. And just like that, we have a factory original 1974, original, mind you, metal replacement patch. So obviously I got a little bit more welding to do, weld in these pinholes, but looks pretty damn good. Have to do some body work, it's a little off, and then I need to make a piece that goes right here, weld that piece on, and then we should be ready for body work. So this section of the fender right here is exactly what I need, 1/2 inch by 4 inch. All right, I know I'm gonna get hell in the comments, but I'm putting it out there. looks good enough for me. I'm gonna go ahead and throw some Bondo filler over it. And all right, got my first skim coat of Bondo on there. Knocked it down with the DA sander. It's got this is all flat and smooth. Just need to work on this line. It's kind of wavy. I'm gonna put one more coat on there. I'm gonna hit it with the DA, block it. We should be good right here. Then we can move on to the all these little holes, fill all these little trim holes in, and then work our way. Got all these trim holes welded up, ground down, ready for Bondo work. Got all the belt trim holes, and I came down here and I found what originally I thought was a small rust hole. Turns out it's a giant rust hole. So I'm gonna have to cut this section out. Luckily it's not too bad. Cut this section out, and it goes over here, and then take a piece of that crunched fender, transfer this over to that, and it should be around the same shape. If not, I'll have to dolly it a little bit. All right, so here's what we're working with. I'll go ahead and put it in the vise and bend it as close as I can get it. This is so funny. So I'm cutting this metal out, and I had my Sawzall in there, so it's vibrating the panel all back and forth. And this thing, look, this came rattling out of it. It's a goddamn pregnancy test from 2005. All right, so this is all welded up. It's not perfect. Basically what I did was I made a dent. So I welded the metal in further back away from the panel, so we basically have a thin dent. And then I have some areas I need to weld up a little bit better. But that's pretty much ready for Bondo work. Now I need to start getting ready to pull all these dents out. And honestly, like, all this area is wavy and dented. The whole bottom section of this quarter panel probably needs to be replaced. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind it down to bare metal, pop it out, and then I'm going to put a skim coat of Bondo over this whole bottom section quarter panel. In 5, 6, 7 years from now, it'll probably start to crack, but it's better than dents and rust. This right here is the perfect example of why anytime you buy a car and you think it's the cleanest car ever, probably not. They're never perfect. You start to poke and prod and sand, and you're gonna find Bondo and rust. And so, I mean, like, look at like this trunk lid. I thought it was just this area and a couple spots, but it's literally all the way. It's rotted out all the way across. I haven't even sanded over here. You can see a hole there. There's a pinhole right here. Pinhole, pinhole. This whole bottom section of this trunk lid is pretty much screwed. I'm probably gonna replace the trunk lid later on down the line, but just for now, I'll probably just putty it on there, just so we have a painted trunk lid. And once I can find a cheap, matter of fact, I know Brown Auto Salvage, they have a trunk lid for 150 bucks. But I'm making some progress on the quarter panel. I got it all pounded out. I got a couple skim coats on there. I'm gonna knock it down, block it, try to get this quarter good. Just put a skim coat on there, some guide coat. I'm gonna block it all out. I went ahead and started on the trunk lid. So I'm gonna buy a new trunk lid. I'm just gonna go ahead and pookie all this up with some Bondo. Who cares? Got 2 dents right here, got a dent right here, got a dent right here. So I would have to cut all this out. It'd be smarter just to buy a clean trunk lid. After I paint the car, just throw that on there, paint the trunk. Went ahead and flipped the car around, rinse and repeat. This is literally the definition of insanity. On this quarter panel, it's all bashed in. I got this slide hammer. I think y'all saw me using it earlier. And I got a box of nails. So what I'm doing, instead of going and buying one of those weld-on stud guns where you can pull the dents out, this little deal unscrews. Take a nail, and these nails, whatever size they are, they fit right in this little dealio. Screw it on there, and you take your cheapy welder, grind this all down, tack weld it, start yanking it out. I'll use that right here too. We got a dent here. We got a dent right here, dent here. This is probably the worst of it. I say that until I find more rust, but this fender came off of a different car. I believe it was I don't know what it was. Whatever car this came off of, it has around the wheel wells, and then it had a strip going down the side of the car. Fill all these in. Some rust holes down here, which sucks. I wish the guy would have told me that before I met him for the trade. Anyways, I'm gonna stop blabbing and get back to work. All right, so I got all this area kind of popped out as best as I can. It's the basic form and shape is all there. It's just really ripply. So what I need to do is all these little studs that I welded on, I need to cut all that off, grind it away, and then from here around is all straight, smooth, original. So I'll just put a coat of filler on there, start working that shape out. It's kind of a weird shape, so if it's a little off, it doesn't really matter. You're not gonna be able to tell. I filled all these holes in. Down there was a very small, you know, 2 to 3 inch by 2 to 3 inch little square patch of rust. I tack welded that all in there. Backside was solid, but it's getting there. I got all that tacked in. I got this pulled out. I got that dent pulled out. So I'm gonna start grinding all these booger welds off, and then we can start smearing that mud on there. So I found some rust right here. I cut it out, welded a little patch in there. Looks like shit, but it's, you know, it works. There's no holes, and it's brand new metal now. Popped all this out. I'm gonna go ahead and start slinging some Bondo. Quarter panel done. I got the trim holes filled in all the way around, Bondo. That's all straight enough for what I consider to be good enough. I'm gonna go ahead and move ahead forward. I am pretty much done with this car. I got to do the door, the fender, the hood, and the roof, and that's all, folks. That's all she wrote. I have a million trim holes to fill in and just a lot of little dings here and there, but all the hard stuff is done. I mean, I got all the hard. This header panel is really wavy, dented. There's dents going this way, that way, all kinds of crazy stuff. And on top of that, somebody just had a thick coat of Bondo over it. So I guess it was beat up. They painted the car and then it got beat up again. Take my flapper wheel. I'm just gonna grind the crap out of it, get it all taken off because all this old Bondo is starting to crack. Take it all off. I'll hammer and dolly it all out as flat as I can get it. And then we'll put a whole coat of Bondo filler over the front of it, as thin as we can get it. The hood has a couple little dings here and there. Nothing crazy though, it's in great shape. It's not perfect, but I mean, it's better than it was, and it's good enough for me. It's probably to the point where I'm gonna really notice these areas that are kind of off, but I got the roof done too. Got all the little dings out. There's a couple little wavy areas, and then the hood's all done up. There was about 4 or 5 dents. There's a dent here, dent there, dent here. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna pull the car out of the shop, take my leaf blower, I'm gonna blow the crap off of it, and then we can start masking this puppy because I wanna get this thing in 2K primer before the sun sets. Come back tomorrow and we gotta start the never-ending cycle of block sanding. And shoot it. Woke up in the morning and it's raining, so that sucks. Probably gonna flash rust. I'm gonna run into the shop real quick and then we'll go ahead and shoot it in the shop. Got some 220 grit. I have some areas I need to hand sand out that surface rusted over from the rain. We have some 2K primer. The cheapest, it's just the cheapest crap they had. U-Pole 4-to-1, high build, super thick primer. We got our hardener. We got a little cheapy hobo freight gun. Looking good. It's come a long way. We will be block sanding this car and getting it ready to paint. Here's where I'm down to. Either I want to do it a satin black, or I want to just go back original B5 blue. That way I don't have to mess with the under the hood or under the trunk until we do our 360 Magnum swap. But so as of right now, what I'm thinking is a single stage original slight metallic B5 blue. That way it's original, under the hood's blue, the trunk's blue, all the interior stuff, metal parts are blue, you know, just don't have to mess with it. And it's not going to be a crazy slick paint job, not going to be, you know, base coat, clear coat, but I don't know. Anyways, at this point I'm rambling and these fumes are getting to my head, so I'll see you guys. So this is exactly why you need a guide coat. These areas like this, every single area that you see that's red, here, 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 literally over the entire roof is just little pinballs everywhere. Those are all dents. They're waves, dings, the areas like right here where it's showing through. If I rub my hand across it, I can actually feel the metal popped out. So these are high spots, all the red's low spots. This whole roof is just dingleberried up. It's either from hail, people just throwing their junk up on the roof in the garage, or the most probably plausible reason is the car is so sexy that it was just from chicks, you know, at the beach climbing up on the roof with their sandals on, and you know, that's probably what it is. Probably not hail, but none of them are crazy. They're not crazy big dents, so I'm just gonna put a thin coat on each one, get it where it feels straight. Maybe I'll tap these down with a hammer and then make a dent, fill those in. But the rest of the body is looking really crisp. I mean, you can tell by that body line. I mean, that's looking extra crispy. That's looking crispier than old Rick James's perm. And I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but if you look down the side, it's a little wavy. I'm just ready to drive the car. I like driving them more than I do working on them. So, all right, I'm gonna get to Bondoing. All right, so here's a little tip for you. If you have areas like this where the metal is actually popped out. So this is a high spot. You can feel it with your hand. Take you a welding hammer. This is meant for chipping slag off of a weld. You can actually tap and feel it. What you want to do is you want to just hit the high spot, make a little tiny dent, and then you can fill it in with filler. But as you guys can tell, this project is escalating very rapidly. Finding a lot of dings left behind this by this guide coat. And we're gonna have to go to the paint store and buy a whole nother gallon of primer. I found some dents on the rocker panel, worked those out. They're good enough. I got the rear valence worked out and bondoed and flat-ish. Here I found another dent. It's a very small crease. Like maybe they turned and they whacked something. That was something that you totally could not tell. Even when I wet the car and looked down the side of the car, I can't even really see it. But obviously I started blocking and I burnt through here and I burnt through here. So that's your low spot. See how it's metal, and it's still white. Take a block, put it up against the side of the car and you start crossing it. You'll see it. If you see areas like this, you know, that's a high spot. And if you see an area that burns all the way through and in the middle you still have your primer, that's a low spot, that's a dent. But all of this was good, no dents up here. Beautiful straight. The car's gonna have to be primed again. The gap between the door and the fender is like massive. I can stick my whole finger in there. The gap back here actually looks okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take all the bolts out of the fender. I'm gonna try to slide the fender back. Oh, you know what? We're hitting the rocker panel. Yeah, never mind. I'm gonna have to slide the whole door forward. So it looks like we got 4 bolts. There's 4 bolts. So I was having a heck of a time getting that door to line up. Garbage, it needs to be rebuilt. You can see how much play it has in it. Since my door's sagging and my hinges aren't lining up, I'm having an issue with getting it all pushed forward, and ordered some new pins. I think I'm gonna wait until they come in, throw these on. Here's the part number, Dorman 38382. It says fits Chrysler, but worst case, it's too big and we'll just drill these holes out and then press those bushings in there. I took it over to my neighbor Lonnie's house. I drilled the holes out, took a vise, and just the bushings just slid right in there. I did notice pretty tight now, so hopefully everything is good. It lines up, so hammer this pin in there, it'd be like brand new, better than brand new. It's as easy as that. I just got it started, whacked it in there, and now there's literally no movement at all. I mean, it's super solid. Part that actually showing, they cracked. So if you look in there, I don't know if that's gonna cause a problem, but I don't think it cracked all the way through. I think it just cracked on the, I don't know. For now it feels good. I'm gonna grease them, throw it on it, and full send it. I put a lot of grease on both the top and bottom hinge. I'm not gonna rebuild the top hinge because it's original and it's pretty tight. I got the gaps as close as I could get them. It's way better than it was. Door shut's good now. We're nice and tight. Okay, I'm going to. So I got the front end to the point where the gaps are good enough. It's not perfect. This gap's a little bigger than that gap, and there's some hood fitment issues, but looks pretty darn good. I went and bought a gallon of urethane primer. They didn't have any urethane single stage paint, so I got some enamel. It is what it is. It's not gonna last as long. What I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna take some sandpaper. I'm gonna go around all the edges of the car, scuff down all the little cracks and stuff, because when you paint these cars, you really got to get in these little cracks, because that's where you're gonna have peel back and your paint's gonna peel away. Put a whole another gallon of urethane primer on it, and then I'll come back tomorrow. It's the weekend. We'll rub this thing down, get it blocked out. There's a pretty good sized rust hole. It really needs to be repaired, but I'm not gonna repair it. Since you can't see it from the inside, you can't see it from the outside whenever you put the that big old bumper bracket on. I'm just gonna wire wheel it and treat it with some paint, because I'm gonna keep this car. I mean, I'm not selling this car. I know it's there. I'll sleep fine at night. Over here is pretty solid. This car's pretty solid. I mean, later on, after I paint the whole car, later on, if it really bothers me, or if I want to sell the car, I can always pull the bumper off, patch that little area, and then patch these areas, and then just there's an area right here too, and then just paint that section. It's not a looks really straight, really good. Man, it's just such a big car. And even standing on a ladder, man, it's like hard to get right in the middle without touching the sides. Another thing too is I need to make sure I completely drain my air compressor, get all the water out of it, crack the bottom and leave it open so any water can drip out. And probably I need to replace my air chuck, because I think this air chuck's leaky. Looking really, really slick. Makes me not even want to paint it with how good it looks like that. All right, I'm gonna let this cure for 24 hours. And on the second block, I'm not gonna use any guide coat. I already know when I guide coat it, I'm gonna find problems. 400 grit wet, get it smooth, but it's gonna be a really cool car. All right, I'll see you guys in 24 hours. Got some blocks, 320 grit sandpaper. I wanna keep the shop clean, so I'm gonna pull it over to the side yard, get my hose and bucket.
I wonder will you ever change your way?
Time has come to get this thing sprayed. In preparation to spray this thing, I'm gonna need to get this shop super duper clean. I'm gonna sweep the entire shop out. I have to make a trip to go pick up some clear coat, and I'll show you guys. I changed up the route a little bit, but I need to clean this whole shop out, get everything moved out of the way so I have as much room as possible, and then I'm gonna go ahead and wet the shop floor right before we paint. And after you sweep, you don't wanna paint the car like within an hour or two of you sweeping. You need to let all that dust fall back down to the ground, and then you can wet the floor. covering pretty good. This metallic is real tricky. If you got to do it just right, or it'll start to blotch out or stripe. So you can see, like in this area, I got some solvent pop right there. I'm not going for a shiny finish because we're gonna clear coat it, and then that'll bring our shine in. I'm just trying to get the color all transitioned into one, you know, one solid state. You're right here, it's like a lighter, the camera makes it look purple, but it's really blue. And then this trunk lid I jacked up, accidentally dusted it on too thick, and my metallic blotted up. All the chemicals and science stuff inside of the paint will actually, you know, be released while it's hardening. So if you lay a coat on while the other coat's drying, it'll pop, and then you'll get these dimples that are still showing through primer, and then some areas that are kind of off colored. I can barely see back here. I need a light. I'm gonna go grab a flashlight too. Look at that body work though. Obviously it's wet sand and buff it. It's gonna be beautiful like a show car. See this, remember this was all crushed in, so I had to pull this all out and basically form it with body filler. It looks really good though. It's not bad. Not bad for a rookie. Here's the door jambs. Looking really good. Door jambs are done. I'm done with the door jambs. It looks okay in the camera, but it looks like crap. The metallic areas, for some reason, I don't know what happened. When I did the base, I used a single stage acrylic enamel and then changed my mind. I was like, oh, well, I might as well just put some clear coat on it. That way I can cut and buff it, because I know it's gonna have orange peel, and you can't cut and buff metallic single stage, because if you try to cut and buff metallic single stage, you'll mess the flake up. But anyways, it looked okay. It looked like it was laid down all right, but like certain angles, there's like stripes. Like if you look, I got some runs in the clear coat. That's not a big deal. Runs in the clear coat are easy to fix. But like if you look at that door, I hope the camera picks it up, but it's like striped. Like you can see the metallic stripes in it. It's like dark, it's like blotchy. This area looks beautiful. When you get to this side is when it gets really bad. So I got a couple runs in the door, and the reason why I had those runs isn't because I didn't know what I was doing. It's because these are the areas where I had like that dark, the patchiness going on. So I was like, I wonder if it's, at first I thought it was a dry spray. So you see, this is a perfect example. See how it looks black right here, like darker? I thought I had a dry spray, so I was like, oh, let me try to fix it with the clear coat. So I laid the clear coat on real thick and then moved around. Oh, it's still blotchy. Like this area looks beautiful. So I'm pretty pissed, but you know, this is like 2 or 3 weeks worth of work. Car looks really straight though. Car looks great. If it wasn't for that motherfucking metallic, we would be good. But whatever. It is what it is. You live and you learn. I'll just have to I'll have to sand the whole car down and repaint it. So I'll see you guys on the next one when we attempt to repaint this thing.